Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Word. My name is Kellie Scott Reed. Today, we're here with the incomparable Wendy Newbury. We have been trying to get this on schedule for a very long time. Uh, she's a writer from Eastern Washington State. Her writing has been featured in the New York Times, Our Press, Roi Faineant. We're big fans. She's received two Best of the Net nominations and a Pushcart nomination. She's working on her memoir, Homecoming, and is a music educator and vocalist of her own band, which I'm thrilled about, Black Dolly. Pretty much the coolest human. I know. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Give us a little background. When did you begin your journey into writing?
It's a funny story. I found myself being at home a lot during the pandemic, not being able to go into my classrooms and teach and express through my students that way, and just found myself reading more and wanting to find another outlet to express. And I thought, this is just something that I'm going to kind of put myself into right now, just being, locked up. And I found myself finding a lot of joy in it and actually being able to express a lot of things that I wasn't able to express before through writing. And so that kind of just took off. And I said, hey, this is something, and really wanted to dive into it more, and started trying to look at putting it places and putting it out into the world. It's kind of how it started.
That's kind of staggering to me to know that it's a fairly recent endeavor. Or
Mm-hmm.
did you just dabble before and now it's more formal?
The first instance of dabbling, I think, maybe was high school when I wanted to do songwriting, and I just kind of dabbled here and there with poetry and songwriting because my biggest influence is Tori Amos. I love her and I love her writing, and I just kind of discovered her in middle school and high school, and so I kind of was writing down music lyrics and stuff, and just kind of got into that, but then ditched it when I went to college and pursued, teaching and music education, and didn't really revisit that side until 2020.
In your work as a teacher, and have you come across any um, times in your career where you've had to use writing in terms of bringing out the students' projects or anything that you've had to do that you found it seeped into that for your
Well,
students?
yeah, the important thing about choral music education is that we're playing with words in our music. It's not just the notes and the rhythm, but we get to sit down and kind of um, deconstruct the words that we're singing and really find meaning, not just the composer's meaning, but also what it means to us. And so a lot of times I will have my students look at lyrics, pay attention to lyrics, and kind of internalize it and maybe come up with their own interpretation of what we're singing. And in a way, that is kind of, how we look at words and how we play with words in the music classroom for choir. That is.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Now, what is the most meaningful criticism that you've received as a writer? I mean, obviously, as an educator, you have to, I hate to even use the word criticism, but guide people in directions with
Mhm.
your expertise. What is the most meaningful criticism you've received?
About a couple of years ago, a close friend told me, you don't have to be so safe in your writing. And at first I was like taken aback, I was like, what do you mean? Because you always think you're being out there. But when she said that, I finally, I was like, you know what? She's right. Even though that kind of, it was like a sting, but it was a good sting. And I thought, yeah, I am being safe. I am trying to please, the people that I know that are going to read this the wrong way or whatever. And I just thought, yeah, I don't need to be safe. I could be a little bit more brave with what I want to say. And I think that was probably the best criticism I could have gotten from somebody, for sure.
So you recently were published in Rec and Review, and it was a really creative concept. Could you talk to us a little bit about that story? and how that came to be for you?
Yeah, I just, I found myself really obsessing over that period in my life where I really didn't have a lot of control over the things that happen when wars come and when, just things that you can't prepare for as a family happen around you. And I remember just always wondering, why do I keep going back to this idea of being torn apart from family and war, and what is it about this that I just can't get over? And it really had a lot to do with what I've played with in my mind as a teenager about why am I stuck in this situation where I can't be with my family, and why is it that they can never be with me? And so I kind of just went back to the rules and regulations of some immigration things and kind of picked it apart, and it was kind of like my own therapy, and saying, this is what happens, this is how it intertwines with people's lives, and for little kids, this is how it feels to be out of control of rules that are set and regulations that are set. And yeah, they might be rules, but this is how a child might view this, or this is how it could tear lives apart, or um, these are the issues that can stem from, being misplaced or displaced, without warning or without explanation. And it was just a way of me working through um, what is very dry and, what it was very cut and dry, um, to a country's standards, and the personal side of it, and just
Mhm.
intermixing those two things, and um, coming to terms with just how those two worlds collide and how messy it can be. I don't know if I explained that right, but
Yeah, it was really because okay, let's talk about your memoir then, because now that's bringing me into you're saying your own experience. You're
Mhm.
writing a memoir. Um, Tell us a little bit about that process and what you've been doing with that.
um, it's it's been a long process, and I'm kind of coming to grips with what I want to say in it, but essentially it's, I've come from two worlds. I've come from the West African world, and I've come from the American world, being born here. And I think in my memoir, I'm really talking about home a lot, but I'm talking about finding home when you've left it, and just a lot of things that, children of immigrants, but children that are born in two different worlds have to kind of come to terms with. And I think for the longest time, was really trying to find out where my home was, whether it was what I left behind or whether it was where I got placed. And the memoir is really a journey through finding out who family is, whether you're apart from your blood family, and then finding out who family is, with the people that you've been placed with, and really accepting where you are. Um, and it's a tug of war throughout the memoir. And I come to terms with a lot of it when I'm 17, but there's a lot of things too that I'm learning now as I'm 41 through that journey. And so it's really bringing those realizations. I'm That's probably not explaining it well because I'm still thinking through it, um, but it's really at the end of the memoir, it's really knowing what is home, what is family, and what got me through, to survive that. And so, yeah, that's homecoming is really two different things, um, but it's a lot of leaving home, and it's a lot of discovering home as well. And it's a constant leaving and starting over, and wherever you are ending up is always going to be home in a different sense. And so it's a lot of that. But yeah.
What component of writing the memoir has surprised you the most?
um
Maybe something you weren't expecting that was
yeah,
resulting.
I think a lot of it details how I'm reunited with my family it's a backdrop of it. In the beginning, I thought that was the story, and it is a big part of the story. Finally reuniting with my family after 11 years. But a lot of what I've come to realize too was how I was finding home in the process. And really, yes, the reunification of my family, but also me accepting the home I was able to make without them as well. And I think that came to the forefront more as I began to write the story. Was realizing what I had all along was a home that I was fighting and not wanting to accept. And really, a lot of that too is a community that when we are going through trials, the community that we need, that we push away sometimes, is exactly the community that gets you through. And so I was learning that as I was writing too, is like, oh, there's a bigger part of the story is I have to look at the community that I had when I didn't have my family. So, yeah.
Oh, do you, when you're writing a fiction story or anything along those lines, and including the memoir, did you have do you have an ending in mind, or do you
Yeah.
let the story unfold?
There's some endings in mind, but mostly you let the story unfold, and kind of a lot of times I have the ending in mind, and then I just have to figure out how to start it and what the middle is really going to be like to get me to that ending that I really want. Um, but yeah, the memoir, I've had the ending for forever, and just leading up to that is what is going to help shape that ending to be really what I want it to be. So, yeah.
Do you have any literary heroes, anyone you look up to, anyone you've read that has inspired your work?
Oh boy. I would say um Way Too More has been a big one. She Her story is similar, but it's from a different perspective. I really loved her take on that experience, and um, just coming to America, and it was a different side, and she puts a lot of Liberian folklore into that, which is really fun because my parents are from Liberia, West Africa, and so it's been really fun to read like her memoir through an actually authentic Liberian's eyes. And then I've always enjoyed Mary Carr's memoirs because she just has such a great perspective on like from the story through a child's eyes that I've really enjoyed and kind of want to play with. And so, oh boy, I'm running blank now, but there are a lot. And I'm reading a lot of memoirs right now that I'm just, and all of them, because I just think everyone's stories are just so fascinating, which is why I'm so drawn to nonfiction in general. But yeah, those are a couple
Yeah,
writers.
it's funny. I'm more of a nonfiction fan myself. I love fiction, but I always think that the truth is stranger than fiction. It's always like you can't even make this stuff up most
Yeah,
of the time.
yeah.
Do you have, like you said, you like memoirs, but is there anything that inspires you? Any situation in your life that has inspired you most to make to to write the nonfiction stuff? Is there something that tweaks your imagination in that regard?
Oh boy. Hmm. I don't know. I really don't know. Something that tweaks my imagination. I think just the desire to be creative, and I as a child I always had a wild imagination anyway. I was always creating movies in my head and always creating stories in my head and just always creating different worlds, whatever they were. Um, and I just think a lot of that just stems from the different worlds that I always created when I was little. Um, it's just always going, even at 41.
And I always ask the same question to pretty
Mhm.
much everyone I interview. Describe a time in your life when you realized that language had power.
Hmm. Well, I think when I was asked to when I was asked to actually speak in front of a governor about my situation, and I had written just like a small paragraph of nothing intellectual at all, just my bare 14-year-old thoughts about um, what I desired for my life and for my family. And I think I just sat up, in the council room and had this paper in my hand and just kind of read what I had been feeling since I was 7 years old. And just hearing the silence in the room and having the councilman say, wow. And knowing that, hey, this language and your words and your feelings can move people to action. And I think as a young, you know, teenager, that was something that I realized for the first time, like, hey, your words mean something and sharing means something. So that would be
Love
an
it.
example. Yeah.
All right. So I'm a music fanatic.
Yes.
So, Black Dolly, what kind of music are you playing? What are you
Um,
singing?
it's a mix of R&B and some jazz influence, a little tiny bit of rock, but mostly an R&B soul influence. It's a lot of music that um, my husband has written, but then also the guys in the band have written. I don't really do the writing, which is funny, but I do the vocals, and it's just a good time. It really is just a good time, a way to hang out with friends who have the same thing in common, and just to provide a good time for everybody else. So yeah.
Do you have anything out online that I can listen to? Any
Yeah, we
video?
have two albums on Spotify. One's
Yes.
called Dreams. It's a cover of Fleetwood Mac, Fleetwood Mac's Dreams.
Oh my God. Seriously. That's
Yes.
fantastic. Okay.
It's really fun. A guy named Robert Glasper and Diane Reeves did a really cool version of it. And so we kind of took our take on that. And yeah, check it out. It's really, really, really fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then we have a second album. I forget why am I blanking the album name? Anyways, oh no, it's just Black Dolly. That's why. So anyway, two albums on Spotify. Yeah, definitely check it out. It's fun.
Absolutely will. I really appreciate you taking this time. This has been a long time coming. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.